Hey everybody, welcome back to Madison Bicycle Trades, Madison Babble Scuttlebutt Talk podcast. We're here with the one, the only, Robert Reynolds.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We're going to turn this over to Sean. He's got some stuff to talk about.
Part two.
Part dose.
two.
You know, if you haven't seen the first
Dude.
part, please stop what you're doing. Go and watch it lovely for part one of that podcast, or you can just watch this one, go back to that one, watch this one, do whatever you want.
Out
It's your
of
world.
order, out of order.
Exactly. I mean, who needs continuity?
It's like Memento,
Exactly.
if you've seen it.
Yeah, most people haven't,
Yeah,
Sean,
that's
because-
right. I have.
There you go.
But ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our lovely podcast. We couldn't get anybody else, so Robert Reynolds here again, part
Thank you.
two.
So again, you've heard about my career.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's still
the very
funny,
bare
right?
minimum. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
still funny.
Exactly.
It's second time around.
Yeah, it's not take two or anything. But thank you guys for being here again. Thank you, Sean, for being gracious enough to let us have this awesome podcast in your shop. Thank you, Joshy. You can't see Joshy, but he's actually in the void here somewhere doing some camera work, and he's also my co-host. So, host with the most and the co-host that doesn't have a lot going on. So thank you again for joining us.
He's doing a lot behind the scenes today, and
Oh
it's
my gosh,
helpful
yes.
because we got all kinds of technical stuff he's taking care of. Appreciate it greatly.
that we're not smart enough to do.
That
So
guy right over there.
thank you, Joshy. And he's pouring a wonderful drink today. Salute, even though Sean really did it. But Robert, thank you for coming back. It's been a great week so far, and I mean you've been busy doing your own thing, rocking and rolling, going to the shop, giving us awesome stories. So Sean, I'll let you take over from here and kind of maybe steer this steam ship.
Let's steer
the
it. Steam ship.
Yeah.
Ah.
Deep cut.
Deep cut.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, right before we get started, remember to like us, subscribe,
Share.
all that kind of stuff. Share this because this video is going to be as good as the first one. I can tell you, it's maybe going to be
If
better.
not better.
I'd say better.
And
Oh
I've
my
already
gosh,
heard
yeah.
a lot of people talk about the first one. They liked it, and so we hope that you do. And please pass it around, subscribe, share, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But first, I'm going to get right in. You have worked with a lot of people,
I have.
a lot of musicians.
Yeah, I have.
Willie Nelson, actually. Didn't you do a collab
We
with
have.
Willie Nelson?
We have. Willie Nelson was, you know, when I think about the legends, for me it began with Carl Perkins. Now,
There you go.
now you certainly know him, and you might.
Who?
I was gonna say, but you know, as a kid that grew up on rockabilly and knew that, you know, Blue Suede Shoes was not only recorded by Elvis but written by another guy and recorded by another guy, and that guy being Carl Perkins. Also knowing that Carl Perkins was the composer of a couple of great songs that the Beatles would record. My favorite childhood group was the Beatles, and so Matchbox, and you know, so I was a fan. I remain a fan. I got to Nashville in 1992, and by 93, 4, I was running into, occasionally working with some of the true legends of my young life, the heroes in my world. I wasn't a big comic book guy. My heroes were rock and roll people.
That's
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
I got a quick question based on this. It's actually I have another question I actually thought about, but I'm going to ask you this one first because you brought up meeting these heroes.
Yeah. And working with them in many cases.
Two answers.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question. You got two answers for this.
Okay.
Which hero did you meet that you were most impressed by? Which hero did you meet that you were let down by? And if you didn't have one that was let down, that's fine too. But it seems like almost always when people meet their heroes or people that they respected,
Yeah.
they are let down so often.
Well, right. They tell you to be careful. You know,
That's
in
right.
meeting your heroes, be careful.
That's right.
I was very nervous, so nervous that I blew the opportunity to fly out and meet Ringo. You know, one of my young heroes would be, you know, all of the Beatles. All four Beatles were, you know, somewhat equal to me. I was kind of a John guy, but loved Paul's songwriting, and then George had a temperament that appealed to me, and Ringo was the backbeat, you know. And I had this chance to fly out and meet Ringo. It was kind of like, well, pick a date. I'm sure he's going to love having you out. I'd heard through good, legitimate sources that he was a fan of the Mavericks, and had turned on to a record called What a Crying Shame, and so, but I blew it. I flinched. I didn't know when to pick the date. I was real busy at the time. We were touring a lot, and then secondly, I was worried that I'd get out there and something would go wrong.
Of
and
course.
I'd be so disappointed, you know, if I was just run through some meet and greet line, you know. And yet, years later, I would meet McCartney and have the most amazing experience. So
That's
I have
awesome.
yet to meet Ringo, sadly.
We can give him a call. We have him
Yeah,
on standby.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
Actually, right
Ringo,
here.
Are you on the line, Ringo?
Behind this style, no,
Yeah.
he's not here.
This is your life, right?
He's at
Oh my
Monaco.
gosh,
You're
yeah.
He's
walking
in-
out.
Yeah.
No, I did later meet McCartney, and if you talk to folks, many might suggest that Ringo would be the easier one to meet, predictably easier Beatle to meet, and Paul could be temperamental. I'm told. I had such a great time meeting Paul McCartney, so I put Paul at the top of my list for this just highly emotional, kind of mind exploding experience. When Paul McCartney walked into the room, I didn't see him walk into the space behind me. I was talking to the other guys in the band. I noticed their eyes avert, and when I turned around, I am 8 feet or 10 feet from McCartney, and then a management figure brought him over to meet us, and he stood around talking, and it was amazing. It's a whole story into itself. So now my big disappointment is odd. It's only disappointing because I just love this woman. I just love everything about her music, her voice, her songwriting, and I wanted so much more from the experience. I walk across this television studio stage, and I'm about to meet her, and I'm so excited. Chrissie Hynde from the Pretenders.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't want her to.
Well, it's already up. It's live on camera right now.
I don't want her to see this.
Well,
Not
yeah.
that she will, but
she's waiting and
Yeah.
bated breath, right?
Yeah. No, I don't want her to think I'm judging harshly. Let me say it this way. Maybe it's the moment I chose to go up and say hello. Maybe it's what I was wearing. I had a leather shirt on. Shame on me.
That would be the issue.
That's
I'm telling you, that's
the
what
No,
it
no, no.
was.
I wear leather all the time and leather. No,
Yeah.
you keep doing you, Robert.
Yeah. Well, I shook hands with her, and she was pleasant. That's all. But it didn't have the moment I'd hoped for.
Just wasn't enough brass in the pocket.
There was not enough brass in my pockets,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's right.
I couldn't buy my way in. But she was warm enough to say hello. We had on this particular show, the Jules Holland show, you kind of jam with each of the bands on this sort of intro thing, and we were jamming on a Mavericks groove, and she was playing along. So look, I love everything about that night. I just wish that it had been a warmer,
More fulfilling moment.
meeting. Yeah.
And having said that, we both know, because we talked about this, how our temperaments ourselves can be. Sometimes you hit someone just in the right moment. It's not to say that we're throwing her under the bus, because the reality is you hit anyone in the right moment.
That's true.
She just may not have been
That's
feeling it.
Yeah,
You never
that's
know.
it. Yeah, there could be any number of reasons that she was not, feeling it. That
Super
moment.
receptive at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment.
And that's just with people
But
in
she
general.
was pleasant, shook her hand, and I was still in the room watching her play some of my favorite songs. I'd been seeing her in concert and the Pretenders. I'd been seeing them since 1980. I saw the original lineup, so with Hyman Scott and Pete Farndon on bass. And I think if she knew that I'm a devoted fan in the right way,
Right.
she might have had the security called.
Single white female, yeah, great.
Yeah. But anyway, still love you.
It's just in case you're watching.
Yeah.
In case, we know she is. Moving on from that though, so that's one of the people. You had a litany of people you've dealt with and played with.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. So let's
Okay.
say you got every person you've ever played with.
Mhm.
You got them all together.
Yeah. Okay.
And you got a show you're doing, let's say it's in Amsterdam.
Okay.
Ooh,
And,
we had a story
That's cool.
about that.
You
That's cool.
got
Yeah, have a
you got a flight that everyone that you have ever played with professionally is on this flight. You're flying over, but it gets diverted. It's going to Rome instead.
Oh,
So you get
interesting hypothetical.
This is a hypothetical.
Stay
You
tuned.
got-
Stay
If
tuned.
you don't know my hypotheticals and my ridiculous long stories, this is one of them.
Yeah.
So you get diverted to
No
Rome.
payoff.
bathroom break.
Yeah. No payoff whatsoever.
There's very little payoff. I kind of lead you. I'm torturing people who watch this. So you get diverted to Rome, but then you get back on track.
Okay.
And you get to fly across the Alps, and what's happened? We got an alive type situation on our hands. Plane crashes into a mountain. You're with
my
all
gosh.
these people.
Oh,
I'm so
God.
sorry, Robert.
Yeah.
Robert,
Uh,
who are you eating first?
oh, golly.
All the people you've worked with.
I probably wouldn't say Willie Nelson because he'd probably be inedible. So
I would have thought
That's
like
when you're down to beef jerky.
exactly, that's what he said.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Golly, that's such an odd hypothetical. I'm almost uncomfortable by the question.
You should be.
I know.
That's where I'm putting you.
Come on, Dahmer, who you gonna eat first?
Yeah, that requires a lot. And the most time if you know anything about all the great cannibalism stories, most people don't talk about it
Great.
afterwards.
We have a lot of great kids. He's got probably 12 great
Well, one of
cannibal
my
stories.
favorite books is about cannibalism. But
Is it a cookbook?
Mostly
no,
fine.
it's not, yeah.
Mostly fine.
That
and
is one
young.
of my favorite episodes of the Twilight Zone, though.
Okay.
The one where the aliens land, and they've got this book that they're handing out to everybody, and they're convincing them to fly off to their planet. And of course, the book is entitled "How to Serve Man."
Right.
But until it's been deciphered, nobody realizes it's actually a cookbook.
But
You know the episode?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's a great episode.
Like Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly that wasn't a real question. It's one of those, if he had an answer, I was going to eat it up,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
But I just figured you
I
would
have
go
a hard
with...
time thinking about that. That's just so weird.
Yeah, I told you,
You said your
man.
drummer was a good guy. I mean, I'm just saying.
I guess
I see. My brain would think more about the size. How much fat distribution is on someone?
Oh, hey, watch
Who's
it.
got the
Watch
best?
it.
Who's the scrawniest? Who's the strongest? Because it's like you don't want something that's going to be tired and stringy.
No,
but
no,
at the
that's
same
right.
time, you want something that's not going to be just blubber.
Or something to give you diabetes. Yeah, we don't.
You don't want diabetes. You don't want that. So you can't eat someone who's like you're pounding hamburgers right
Okay,
and left.
how about stay tuned. How about at the very end of this, I'll have an
He's gonna
answer.
have an answer.
Okay. all right.
Actually, he's just gonna leave.
Yeah, try to.
Yeah.
I believe his answer will be, I'll never be back.
Yeah.
So that was one of those hypotheticals. But you got some.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say we were
rock and
talking
roll
about
stuff.
different rock and rollers and stuff like that you've performed with, who you've been with, who you've met. I did some little research because
Okay.
I never heard of the Mavericks or you, and I'm just kidding. We're good friends. I know a little something about you, but did you actually open for Marilyn Manson? I read online.
We did.
They
We
used
did
to-
shows with Marilyn Manson back
Yeah.
in Miami. We shared management.
Really?
Yeah. Our early manager. In fact, we were co-managed by two guys, John Tovar, who's still living, and Frank Kalari. Frank is no longer with us, and I love Frank, and God bless him. Honestly, take a moment to share with you that Frank was amazing, guided our career through all the early pitfalls, and got us to where we were really, really on top of the world.
That's awesome.
And so I'll always have a special place in my heart for Frank. Frank had an ear. He came out of New York City. He had been a DJ in the era of like the Mud Club and all that, and he was spinning discs with, Belushi, and Keith Richards would be up in the DJ booth. This was like heavy hitter stuff. And he came to Miami and signed a couple of acts, and among them were Marilyn Manson and the Mavericks, both in
Ooh.
almost simultaneous fashion, kind of got deals and then had their own version of epic success. So we did a lot of shows. We probably did, something like a half dozen shared nights. Now, bear in mind, it'd be all original punk type clubs in Miami, Florida, and so at 1 hour you're hearing Marilyn Manson or Forget the Name or Lyrics for Lunch, and then the next setup is the Mavericks, and it's twanging, but on a kind of a
Yeah.
on a punkabilly.
That's why I read
edge.
it. So you kind of started out as a punk band, but also you had like rockabilly, country, Tex-Mex, neo-traditional, and Latin roots as
Yeah,
well. There's like
they're all in
almost
there.
like
Melting pot.
exactly,
Yeah.
just like a mix.
Yeah.
Well, that's really awesome.
I
man.
like the neo-traditional.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that one.
Yeah.
That's
New
fun.
tradition.
Neo-traditional. It's a new tradition that we
Sounds
just
like
started
architecture.
today. Yeah.
Exactly.
Neoclassical, neo-traditional.
But-
But there's also another story, which I just want to make sure Deshaun's gonna
Now,
take
by the
over.
way,
Yo.
real quick, I
Yeah.
do want to say, so to me, Marilyn is still Brian in a way. We never got to be friends. I won't claim I knew him well, but I remember when they were Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids.
Ooh.
But I'm going to tell you something about Brian, Marilyn. Brian came to Frank with a complete vision, right down to sketches of the lunch boxes that would have their brand on it, T-shirt,
He's very
He
hands-on
had
with
a
everything.
vision for
Gene
the
Simmons
future.
like.
Gene Simmons, he had a vision for the future of what the brand Marilyn Manson would be, and it began as Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids, and there was everybody had a starlet name mixed with a serial killer name. So it'd be
Of
like,
course, you
yeah.
should see my pseudonym. You,
Yeah.
you know it
Well, I
actually.
know,
Never
yeah.
mind.
So anyway, back to your next question.
Well, it actually leads into someone else. So I just gotta ask. I'm gonna turn it over as soon as I ask the question. Donkeys?
Ooh, I know exactly what
My
you're saying.
Pets?
Donkeys or something with donkeys with the
Tim McGraw?
rock star.
Well, I'm a big fan of Manson. We'll change over. I like
yes.
Manson, but also I like Rob Zombie and
Oh, I had the greatest late afternoon, as I recall, with Rob Zombie.
so nonchalant. Like, we were.
Yeah, it was unexpected, and it was not that long ago. But what made it fantastic? So you say donkeys, and here's what I think immediately: My Pets, of which I had 5. I then thought of a closing night concert where Tim McGraw brought out a live donkey onto our stage while we're playing. That didn't go so well.
No.
Oh, never mind.
No, but the donkey didn't really appreciate 10,000 people and a band at full volume.
You didn't get the memo.
I'm sure Chrissy Hine would not have liked that moment either. But nobody got hurt. The donkey was not hurt. But they parade this thing across the stage, and I knew donkeys well enough to know this is not the
It's not
environment
what we want to
for
see.
donkeys. Thanks, Tim. He doesn't want any letters on this either, I'm sure. But
He treated that donkey well, people. You leave him alone.
yeah, it was cared for.
Go hug a tree.
Yeah. So at any rate, and then the final donkey connection was I go into, I want to say it was Sirius Satellite Radio, if I remember correctly, New York City, and we were in the green room, and I look over there and there's Rob Zombie. And he looks like Rob Zombie, but he looks so casual, and we say hello, and my nature is to chat somebody up. I mean, not because it's Rob Zombie, but because we're sharing a 12 by 12 foot green room or something. And I find out that he just bought a farm. If I'm not mistaken, if I got part of this wrong or right, it's just my memory, but it was like in Connecticut. He wasn't far from the city, so it was going to be his northeast abode, and he was thinking about doing maybe like some livestock on the property. And I told him that, well, if you're going to get anything like sheep or goats or anything like that, if you want something to protect them, get a couple of donkeys, get a pair. And that got him talking. He said, I've heard this. And before you know it, an hour of he and I just rapping about the farm life and donkeys and what amazing animals they are.
Because of course, if you know anything about Rob Zombie or seen Rob Zombie, the first thing you would think is, I just expect that he would want to be a farmer at some point.
Yeah, wouldn't you look at him that way? Well, it's funny, but this is, to me, a little microcosm example of what really happens once you've done 20 plus years in the music industry and you get past all of that sort of, I guess that's the moment I would have liked to have had with Chrissy Hine, put it that way. In other words, you want to be somewhere where it's not about gushing about their music, you just want to
Have an intimate conversation.
You want to have a good conversation about something. So anyone that's a big Rob Zombie fan or anyone that's on the fence, let me suggest to you that he's one heck of a great guy. He really is. What I came away with from that was, man, what a warm and creative individual he is. Now that's got me thinking about something. One of my weirdest nights spent rapping with somebody was Courtney Love.
I bet.
What?
And this is when her career had been really kind of happening in Hollywood. She began to make
People versus Larry Flynn.
right, and some of her real stellar work
Yeah.
before maybe she got back into whatever has been her her proclivity in either drinking or drugs. I don't know. I don't want to speak to that since I don't know. But the night that I spent talking with her was in a hotel bar in Nashville. Hole did a concert, and that was great. Went out to see that. And then we went back to the hotel and had drinks, and she was one of the most on fire, on point, creative, epic big thinkers I've ever seen.
And how many drinks did you have?
Man, let me tell you, jokes aside, this
real deal.
woman was amazing.
Okay,
So
awesome.
when you think about,
Wow.
well, here I say that to her
Mind blown.
potential. Her potential. Forget whatever's been her look, I'm not one that's going to criticize. I have my deal. Whatever that is, life is very dualistic anyway. There, you get a bunch of this and then you get a bunch of that. You get the yin and the yang. I saw a woman that was on fire with a vision for who she would be as an actress, and she was lit up. What a thinker.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you say that because
And in good form.
I would never have guessed that. And it's one of those stories that you hear and you go, wow. It's sometimes people, they give off a vibe, they give off a feeling that maybe you just don't really get. And then maybe they're not like that at all in real life.
Well, I tend to agree. Like the show that I saw and everything about her, she, the Courtney Love that is that, the lead singer of Hole and what she kind of wore and how she presented. It was all of that. She had the whole twisted thing going on. But the person I spent time talking with was amazing.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
That's one of those stories that I'm sure people who don't know her
Would be shocked to
would be
hear.
shocked to hear
Yeah,
no matter
yeah,
what.
yeah.
But that actually is a perfect segue
Oh, gosh.
into a little more of a maybe a darker part of your past, something that maybe is a little rougher
Yeah, sure.
in your dealings with some addictions
Yeah.
throughout your life.
Yeah.
What do you want to say about that? What's something about that? First off, I want to say this. What's something about that part of your life that you lived that you can say, what's something that you can look back on and say, this was still me, or this was something that it changed? When was you at a point that you changed something where you knew you weren't you?
Oh gosh. Well, I wasn't my best me. Like I guess I would suggest that when whatever your addiction is, in my case, painkillers became the sort of the ruling drug of my life, and the drug that was driving me to ruin, and would be threatening to life and everything that's worth living for. So opiates and the broader family that is that. I think the big changes came probably after '07 and maybe more specifically 10, 11, and 12, but then coming off of them and not successfully at that time. Between 12 and 14 was hit and miss. Okay, so speaking of that, I come from a family of. We talked before we went on camera today, or on air. We talked about addiction in our families, right? And my mom and dad both died really in their addictions. My grandfather, I knew him to have a drinking addiction, a problem with drinking, but he self-corrected and lived a full life clear of his alcoholism, or clear of the active addiction. So I got to see what that looked like too. So I give my grandfather some credit for being a roadmap to a better life. But I think I took the liberal attitude of my experimental self, my 20s and 30s, that anything for a good party that night, anything within reason, certain boundaries. I took that right up to the point that the drug gained control of me, and opiates are no joke.
But this didn't start as something that was just a straightforward, I'm going to party.
No.
And that's
And
the
I
thing.
say this carefully.
And this is something
you know
that-
this, right?
right,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to say something that I've never talked about. And I want to
Okay.
be really, really careful. I'm willing to talk about it, but I want to. The reason I'm careful about this is because I don't associate my addiction with, dental work. I just feel like when I had some major dental work in the late 90s and did a whole bunch of having the childhood fillings removed and doing all that stuff you do when you can afford to and when you want to do that and make your smile right and all that, I just got insight into this drug that tickled my fancy. It did not, I was not overprescribed, I was not misled by a dentist. I was in fact given a warning by my dentist about what a slippery slope they are.
Right.
So in fairness to him, I want to say that's not, But look, I'm in the music business, and we're pretty creative, calculating kind of sorts. We got usually too much money, way too much time, and before you know it, you seek it out. Anything can be found, right?
Einstein had some sort of mathematical equation: money plus time equals cocaine. I don't know. I mean, but the problem is that's really true.
Well,
the idle hands idea. It's like sometimes you end up.
And that sort of, and then we took these long periods off, and I'm well past blaming anybody for what I got into. I don't think it's healthy for me. I think I have to own it all.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you, we took a big, nearly 3-year break in the early 2000s. I was still kind of in smooth waters then. My mom died in the early 2000s, but my father died in 2007. And I distinctly remember when coping with dad and grandmother's passing that year, anytime I felt stressed, I felt like I needed to have those painkillers. And that to me had never been a part of my life before that year. I remember feeling like I've got to have them or I'm not going to be able to deal with this. I've got to have some before I go deal with this again. I've got to go back to Kansas City. True coping, poor coping.
Right.
An awful or yet a brilliant example of what poor coping mechanisms can turn into. So by the way, the Mavericks were not touring or recording between 2005 and 2012. 7 years. I was doing. I was working with a digital company and having a good go of it. A mild version of that addiction. If you ever talk to people that have, they have that sort of odd skill of hiding the addiction or being, a kind of a marginally responsible drunk. You might hear about someone who can, they get up and go to work.
High functioning.
High functioning. Thank you. That's really what I wanted to say. A high functioning addict. I think for periods of time I was a functioning, maybe at times even a fairly high functioning, not always. I'm not even going to take much credit for that. I'm certain there'd be a lot of people who'd like to say, he was anything but high functioning. Maybe a completely dysfunctional addict. It doesn't matter to me today because it's all one story and it's my story. And man, I got to tell you, if ever you want to do this in depth and bring other people who've struggled with this, I'd love to come back and make that the whole podcast. I think you'd be doing. I know it may not seem like I see the look on your faces.
I'm listening.
But honestly, if you met the right couple of people and you thought, man, let's do that. Let's do an episode that deals with some addiction and get some people who've had some stories to share. You'd be doing a great service to the listening community.
Right.
Doesn't mean that we're not colorful people with some great stories. I mean,
my gosh, yeah.
I'm sure,
I mean, in the middle of this addiction, I can tell you some great stories.
Right.
But it's a ramp. It's a ramp for me, and it's if 05 and 6 are just down here, but 07,
rising action.
And then by 8, 9, and 10, it's getting worse, and by 11 and 12, you're just dependent.
So, was there ever a time where you truly felt like a lot of times people talk about this, and I don't know if this is even a real thing with some people, but did you ever have a time where you felt like you hit that true rock bottom?
Well, it's interesting. I think people viewing my life would want to say, oh, well, the rock bottom had to be being let go from the Mavericks, being fired from your band, right? In a way, that's not the rock bottom I see for a number of reasons. One being, that's somebody else's action imposed upon me. I almost see the rock bottom being of one's own. Yeah, did you play a role in it? Sure you do, but I feel like I still had, I'm at rock bottom and asking for a shovel. I'm still digging. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also knew I wanted out. You're not talking about a guy who just was going blindly to his death.
Yeah.
I had this part of me that was really, really anxious to be well again, be whole again. I mean, the guy you know, and I like to think you like the guy that comes to visit the shop.
Of course,
The guy
yes.
you know is the guy I most recognize about myself. I love people. I love collecting. I love life. I like to be of service to others. I like to enjoy my life. I like to be creative.
It's evident. It's,
Yeah.
it's noticeable.
Good.
People
Thank
who-
you,
who
because
know.
that's the restoration of a human being. And I want to end this with hope, if I can, to say, yes, I found a rock bottom nearing the end there where, and you know, a gun was pulled on me. I'm trying to, you know, get what I need, get this drug that I have to pursue and that I'm bound to, chained to, like a, you know, slave to, and a gun was pulled on me.
It's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal. And so, do I know right then that this is the moment? No, I don't actually. I'm prepared for all that. I'm ready to roll with it. I give him a little bit of money, but I've got other money hidden. He runs off with the little bit I gave him, and off with the gun he goes, you know. I don't think that one really hit me till sometime later upon reflection.
So it's something in the moment that wasn't something you were sitting there thinking, oh my God, this,
I've
what
missed-
have I done with my life?
Yeah.
I got to do
At
something
hind-
right now. It's
at
something you rolled
hindsight.
with, and then a day, 2, 3, a week, whatever down the road, you started really thinking about it.
I was already trying to find my way out. I had contact with some good doctors. People are saying, trust this, we're going to get you there. Have faith in us, have faith in the program. We're going to work through this. And in my life, I saw the horizon.
Yeah.
I saw the horizon. So I think it was a lot of things happening at once, but you know, you're never out before, you know, one more near miss, and that would probably be mine. Yeah.
Everyone's life, though, it's always like you said before in the last one series, chapters, life in chapters.
Oh, I love life in chapters.
And life is that. And you know, people go through different periods of time where if they battle depression, they battle addiction, whatever it is. And everyone will deal with some form of something in their life, and that's part of your life. And I appreciate you talking about it.
Yeah. No. Oh man, thanks, man. That's
I'm proud of you.
We appreciate
that's nice.
it.
No, I tell you, it would be worth doing something again and digging in, because I never feel like I'm satisfied with the story I've told. I would always want to tell more, because I'm not running from it anymore. That's the whole thing. I don't post every day on Instagram about recovery. I feel it's also highly personal, but I do post every day about what a grateful human being I am.
Mhm.
So in that, you must see that that's
Of
a
course.
person in recovery.
You're something I want to say. I have some funny stories about Robert in the shop, but it does show how you are. Like what you were saying, I see it with how you are with people.
Uh-huh.
You are.
Gosh,
You've had a life with a lot of things that have occurred. Everyone's life does, but you've also been in a situation where you were a celebrity and those things had.
Yeah.
But I will say, this is my what I've seen. You dealing with customers in my shop or people that come in. I've got 2 stories. I'm going to tell you a quick one though.
Uh-huh.
Is Robert's in the shop. He's looking around. We're talking, and he finds some stuff or whatever. He checks out. He leaves. And there's a guy that was in here, and he's watching the situation,
yeah, I was here.
and he
I remember the story.
sees that we're talking, and he's listening. I can tell he's kind of listening, and he picks up that the guy I'm talking to is someone that he probably knows, and that it's probably someone in the music business.
Yeah.
And so Robert leaves, and the guy comes up, and he was like, he's trying to check out, and he's asking me questions that are baiting me, trying to get me to say. And so yeah, I said, oh no, that was Robert Reynolds. Yeah, that was Robert Reynolds. Is the Mavericks? I know the Mavericks. And from that point, his eyes were like that big, and he slowly starts backing away as I'm still talking to him. He's checking out. I've already gave him his money, but he's still talking to me. But all the while, his feet are just slowly backing up,
Creeping back.
creeping backwards. And at some point, he just says, "I'm done with you," pretty much. Turns around and jets out the door.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and I told Casey, I said, "I think I screwed up. I think this guy's running him down."
Yeah.
And
yeah.
sure enough.
In fact, he did run him down.
Yeah.
He did run you down.
Well, and his name is John, and yep,
Bless
I got
his-
to know him.
bless
John,
his heart.
John found me in a parking lot about half a block that direction, and great guy. If he sees this, I hope he does. because he came up just, I mean, breathless, you know. I'm a songwriter. He didn't make one thing. He didn't say a thing that made sense to me. I mean,
He just
his
put
first
words
thing was,
out.
I'm a songwriter.
How about that?
5 different things, but I got it. And
You ciphered it.
Yeah, I ciphered it. And the thing that I dug, and we became acquaintance friends. I haven't seen him now in a few months, but the thing I dug is that he was saying, I write songs, and, you know, I've been around a lot of people that seem to just sort of write me off. And I said, well, I won't write you off. If you want to meet up with me and play me some music, I'm going to do that. Now, I don't do it professionally anymore, so I didn't feel I had a lot to offer the guy, but I guess when you live out here, it's enough to meet someone who's done it, you know?
Yeah.
So he's meeting a guy who's achieved
around
a
the
certain
world
amount,
with
right?
it. Yeah.
So he gave me his number, took mine, and called me, and I've heard a bunch of his songs, and I get what he's trying to do, and yeah, that's a good example.
It's amazing how often people he'll start talking to people in the shop and out in public, and he just takes to people so quickly, and he's very happy to help them. And pretty much anyway, I had a woman checking out. She had some posters or some large, maybe some windows, some antique windows.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Robert's
yes.
waiting up here
Beautiful
talking.
young thing.
And Robert's like, hey, I can take you out, take those out for you. I don't mind helping you. And I'm like, Robert, you don't gotta do that. Just stand. It's all right. We got a guy. We'll get to Sean. Or I'll help. And he's like, no, I got it. So he's out there actually like putting her seat down, getting it right so that they'll fit in there.
Yeah, because she had no idea how to fit these big
them.
windows, and she was taking them back to her college dorm. And what's funny is that Michelle and I have a window hanging in the same way, just using an antique window as an art piece, right? So I got what she was all about, and yeah, you know, it was, you know, I don't know, I can't see now. That's a different story. That's my grandmother's influence. My grandmother raised me to be a gentleman, and you know, it's old school. It's hold a door. It's, you know, it's my handshake. It's my eye contact. It's, you know, getting a woman seated before you take your seat. It's how you eat. Literally the timing by which you eat your food. You know, I was taught all these funny little like
Tidbits and little
yeah,
things in life.
that have stuck.
Well, you should let me down it because maybe I would have got her number, and then we, you know, I'm just saying,
So
Robert.
I was saving her from him.
Exactly.
This guy. Yeah.
Were you even working that day?
I was, and then you walked in, and I was just like, Robert, he's just gonna steal her away from me. It's okay.
Michelle knows I'm out of the game.
I'm out
of the
Yeah,
game.
you have yeah,
It was great. That's the
ring on
thing.
your finger,
And
and
he's newly married. But no, that was the thing. This is not an accidental one-time situation.
No,
it's
He does this kind of thing constantly. People will say, "Hey, I want to jam with you. Hey, can we jam? Hey, let's get together." A guy in here was looking. He came in looking for a compass,
Yeah.
and he then realizes Robert starts talking to him, and he realizes who he is. Hey, man, I want to jam with you. Yeah, let's get to jam. And Robert's like, oh, "Okay, man. Well, yeah, let's do this thing." And he was like, "I play harmonica. I'm a mean harmonica player. I want to play."
Put some stank
And the
on
guy
it.
was the funniest guy because he's buying a compass, and then he is saying, "Which way is north?"
Yeah.
Now
It was
we
sort of
live
like that, wasn't
we
it?
live down by the river, which is separates Indiana from Kentucky, which most people know that Kentucky is south of Indiana. So you just look away from the river; it should be good enough. He goes up to a Spanish-looking fellow and says, "El Norte, El Norte,"
No, it's not. No,
and
it's
he
not.
literally started asking this, assuming that the Spanish guy would know where north was.
And that El Norte is
Right. That was.
gringo for what? I don't know.
And he was
El
going with the
Norte.
north. And the fact that this was the same guy that Robert also said, you know what, yeah, you know. Now, I don't think they ever played together, but the point was that
I don't think he's been back in town.
I don't think
Probably
he
hear
has.
from him though.
I
I'm
think
gonna call you like, hey, do you know where north is? El
Hey,
Norte.
By the
El
way,
Norte.
I've been known for this since Moby Dick was a minnow. I remember being in Nashville and getting all kinds of guff for the fact that, you know, if someone meets Robert for, 2 seconds, they got his home number, the taxi driver's calling him at home, But, it always felt weird to be in music for this reason. I was raised in a pretty humble family, particularly after my parents divorced, things kind of got chaotic and haywire. And I never felt good having privilege over somebody. Never made me feel good. I don't do well with the boundary of, I'm in on this side of the velvet rope.
Exactly.
You're on that side. It doesn't make me feel good at all. I don't like it.
yeah, I mean, there are people who take that perfectly.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
want
oh,
that.
They love that.
They
Now,
love
I've
that.
had a couple of guys in my band in particular. That's you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Raul's pretty well. He makes I'm not outing him. God bless him. He makes no bones about this, but he likes the idea that, I got my sanctuary, and don't even come on the bus if you're not bringing me a gift or
Right, right.
a bottle of tequila or something to smoke.
Do you stay in touch with?
Not
people,
really.
members?
It's not in my heart. Yes, love the guys, but I think there's a lot of fans misunderstand what. I think people might even think that I choose not to play music again with the Mavericks or something. I think it's because there's this idea that I was welcome to come back, but that's not how I viewed it, and I think. It had to feel like I was truly welcome to have ever thought it would happen. I'd have to have had a different parting relationship with guys and they're like family to me, So I have to say, regretfully, no. But it doesn't mean that in my heart I don't feel like, they're like my brothers,
Exactly.
We've accomplished so much, and I have a sense of, in my humble opinion of how this all works, that we might be separated here in the living world, but I think one day we're all together again in the world beyond this.
That's awesome. Man.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears and go to the other passion, one of your passions in your life, which was collecting.
Yeah.
You had a show. It was on CMT.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you can, if you're watching, if you're listening,
You can Google it.
Yeah, absolutely. Google it. It's on. Yeah, it's good. Some of they're probably on YouTube.
I mean, they've got them up, and I don't know. It's that weird thing where I guess to have copyright control, CMT put probably $1.5 million into this TV show. So there are full episodes up. It's called Raiders of Rock. Steven Schutz and I actually created the show. Yes, we brought it to a production team that did a lot of refining on it, refinement of how the show would present as a TV show. But
Right.
the basic creation of the show was Steven and I, and it was our exploits in finding rock and roll memorabilia.
Well, you also, Don, did you have a roving memorabilia
I did,
museum?
Yeah, we did. In the late 90s, this guy that I was buying memorabilia from, I bought a bunch of letters Patsy Cline had written. I probably bought 10 or 12 letters over a period of time. Some of them like 6 and 7 pages long, others 2 and 3 pages. But these real expressive letters she wrote to Treva, I think this gal had run a fan club for Patsy, and they were really amazing letters. A book has been done on the letters Patsy's written. I bought a bunch of them, and I was buying a lot of other stuff from Steven. He was a dealer in memorabilia, really good stuff, Elvis jewelry, you name it. All kinds of great stuff this guy's uncovered. And you can check him out online too, by the way.
What's his name?
His name is Steven Schutz, like shuts the door, Schutts. But you can check him out on Instagram for sure at Rockology. That's the name of our shop. He still carries that name for his own use now, but he still deals in memorabilia. And we created the Honky Tonk Hall of Fame and Rock and Roll Roadshow.
Okay.
And it was a traveling exhibit of music artifacts. We had killer stuff. I mean, I never talked to you guys about some of the stuff we had, but I mean, besides wardrobe, Hank Williams shirts and Buddy Holly suits and
That's what I was gonna
Patsy
say.
Cline's boots. I had an aileron from the wing of the plane that Patsy Cline went down on.
Right.
I had a lot of, oddball stuff. I guess some people would call it somewhat macabre, but I didn't see it that way. I thought it is somewhat reverential, though. Some things show a little harder than others. But I had been inspired by the fact that the Otis Redding plane, the Hard Rock has a piece of the plane that was painted with the Otis Redding show logo. And it's a piece of, aircraft aluminum painted, and that plane went down. As history tells us, Otis lost his life. That's how I saw the Patsy Cline aircraft part. I saw it as reverential to this profound career and this iconic voice. Every woman that ever sings after 1963 has always sung some part of Patsy's legacy.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, long and short of it, we had some great stuff.
You told me a story about Buddy Holly, which of course
Yeah.
to me is kind of one of those rock and roll, put them on Mount Rushmore. I think Buddy Holly fits there. So I think that you had a story though about getting.
I'm glad to hear you say that about Buddy. By the
I
way.
feel that.
I know you do. We don't talk about this much, but and not leaving Deshaun out of it, but I know from coming in the shop, because I'm hearing your playlist play quite often, and I know you have this really, really broad but very, very wonderful taste in music, and a deep kind of broad, intertwined but sometimes very disparate, the things I hear.
Mhm.
So I'm hearing great music in here. I know it's your personal playlist, and I've heard Holly, and so that knocks me out, because Holly is the single individual in music, the single entity that I give all the credit to, even though I was a huge Beatles fan, and today
Right.
I'm a massive Doors fan. I love all the pioneers of country and country rock. I'm a Waylon fan, blah, blah, blah. The list is varied too. But Buddy gets that one distinction. He was at the beginning for me.
At the beginning
Yeah.
of that. Also, he's at the beginning of that kind of rock and roll where you wrote your stuff. He played the guitar, and he played the guitar differently
Yeah.
from others, and
And
their
he-
whole sound was unique.
Everything was different. Your ear is you're spot on, but Sean's a guitar player, and so I guess that's why you understand that. His compositions were different. He would inspire the Beatles to
Absolutely.
do certain things by way of.
Because they would put him on the if you asked Paul McCartney or John Lennon.
I
if he was
did.
here-
I did. The
Did
first
you?
conversation I had, the first minute of talking to McCartney, was he and John trying to cop the Buddy Holly composition and the harmonies.
And remember, the Beatles. If you a little history, the Beatles, Buddy Holly had the Crickets.
Yeah.
There was a whole period of time where people were trying to what band names can we use from insects and or animals?
Yeah.
And that's the Beatles were a take on Buddy Holly, the Crickets.
Yeah.
So I mean, so you met Paul and you talked
And
music
and
immediately.
Very specifically, and immediately he was talking about he and John trying to cop this Buddy Holly thing, because Buddy's thing was different than Carl and Carl Perkins, and different than Elvis. Elvis certainly is the king of rock and roll. I mean, he just look at him.
It's- yeah, I
Early
understand.
Elvis, it's epic, right?
I'm not a huge Elvis fan. I'm one of those. My mom was a big Elvis fan. I love the Beatles, and people like Tarantino and stuff has talked about in his films about you're either a Beatles guy or you're an Elvis guy.
Yeah,
I
he's
am
an Elvis guy.
I'm most definitely 100,000 billion% a Beatles guy. And Elvis is great. And I do think he is a king because of what he is, and like you said, the look, the feel.
Yeah. I mean, he set the tone, right?
Right. But the thing with me, and this probably plays slightly with you, is that the writing. He just wasn't. The Beatles were the writers; they were players, and Elvis was basically, I'm going to sing the songs and I'm going to stand up on stage. He didn't have the writing qualities or the playing
No, I mean
abilities.
Elvis wasn't known as a writer and still isn't recognized as a writer. Buddy Holly leaves at people say 22. He was barely that. I mean 18 months of nationally recognized career.
Right.
A handful of years development before that, but he was only really famous for a very short period of
Yeah.
time, a couple of years max. I mean, not the outside, but mostly like 18 months of putting some songs on the radio. But look at the body of work.
The body of work
And I
in
don't need
such
to
a
tell
short
you, yeah. In such a short time, yeah. And then what he was doing with recording, and I just feel like he would have been doing something like Sgt. Pepper, but to his own,
Yeah,
he
to
was
his
going
own
to do
beat.
epic recording, techniques. and
Yeah, because he did so much early on with just like you said, those few a year and a half or
primitive
so.
gear and
Very
yeah.
primitive, like working out of where was it, New Mexico? Or-
Yeah, Clovis, that's right.
And so he was doing a lot with very little, and his writing was great, and it influenced so much.
Yeah.
If you say it around, what would he have been doing? That's like you said. I think he would have been making epic, true albums. full
all
albums.
big albums, and I think we'd be talking about him like we talk about Brian Wilson or like we talk about other great
The Beatles
producers
themselves.
and writers, composers.
Yeah, no, that's something that I know we share a lot of
Yeah.
music history. But like you mentioned earlier, though, with him, you actually owned a whole suit.
Yeah, I had the Chirping Crickets thing, and that's the album with the gray suits. I got the backstory, getting to know the actual Crickets themselves, Joe B and J.I. The backstory on those, I think they bought them in Houston. They were still off the rack suits. They weren't anything, but they bought matching suits,
Right.
Of good quality. But this is before, the story I got is that the Everleys, who were already really fashion forward, thought that Buddy and the Crickets, and Buddy particularly, could look a whole lot better if he got out of some of those podunk duds and started wearing some svelte, tailored suits and
Right.
hip sweaters and anyway, so that credit supposedly goes to the Everleys for taking Holly and shopping in New York or wherever they went. But I got that suit that's just right there on the cover of Chirping Crickets, and
Right.
I had it for years. It's a good example. Let's talk though for a minute about being a dealer in memorabilia. That suit, when I bought it, was $7,000. Okay, sounds like a lot of money, but not to my ears when I think about the album
No.
cover worn
It
suit.
doesn't sound like a lot at all
No.
nowadays.
And Buddy had marked on the tag just inside if you take the men's suit jacket open, and there's the inside lapel like pocket, or that whatever, the breast pocket I should say, the inside breast pocket. When you pulled it open, there was a little label tag there, and he had written his name, and you could even see that it was in Buddy's penmanship. He had written his name, I guess, when they sent him out for dry cleaning.
That's what
had
they
to
did,
differentiate,
yeah.
right? So anyway, I bought it for $7, and a guy begged me to sell it. About 8, 9, or 10 years later, Stephen said, "Man, I'm getting blown up by this guy. He really wants it. He's willing to wire the money today." And I finally parted with it. I got $15,500 for it. I don't know what it's worth today. I'd double it.
More.
I'd double it. But
Well, there's so many people that are into rock and roll history, and like we talked about Buddy being such a top guy,
Yeah.
I have no doubt that's a lot more money today.
and it will land eventually in the right museum, or be loaned to, or all that stuff. Eventually the value will drive it to the right places. But once it's known as a bona fide artifact, and that's the best part of the story to me, is when you rescue this stuff out of
Mothballs.
yeah, some fan got a scarf here, or somebody found an attache that belonged to Roy Orbison, and it's been pulled out of the trash, and these things did happen. Nashville
Right.
was known for having a lot of stuff in the dumpsters.
Absolutely, because companies would clear out.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they would
Just-
move through, and they're like, "Hey, we're switching over names."
I
have been
remember
changed."
somebody getting, I guess they had like a little sale or something. They bought a file cabinet out of one of the old publishing companies, out of their offices. And when they opened it, the drawer was kind of stuck. But when they opened it, there was nothing left in the file cabinet, but sort of fallen to the bottom was 50 checks signed by Roy Orbison, signed and already processed, or
Right.
what do we used to call
They've
that?
already been cashed and returned.
Canceled checks.
Yeah.
What do we used to call that in the days of paper checks?
Real checks.
Yeah,
Paper
canceled checks. Yeah, they were all
People are
canceled,
listening
but they
and
were
going, "I
all,
don't know what that
I
is."
still don't know what that is.
and they were written for unusual things too. It could be for a suit, from nudies, or
Right,
whatever
right.
it would be, a guitar.
Right.
The best checks, canceled checks from artists, would be the ones that are
Music gear.
written for real specific things, noted to that person.
Right.
If there was a Jimi Hendrix check with a Marshall amp, or
Right,
a
right.
Stratocaster guitar written in the notation.
Purple shirt with
Yeah.
paisleys.
Yeah.
Roy
That's the
Orbison.
one you want.
Black rim glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So let me ask you about commercial breaks.
We're back.
We're back again?
We're back again.
Live and in color this
We're back
time.
with Robert Reynolds. And before we start back up, I just want to say we got an ad this week, and we're very appreciative of it's Love You More Thrift Store. It's up on the hill. If you're in Madison, it's on the hill. It's on Lanier Drive. Address is 2124 Lanier Drive. So you want to look for them. They got a new sign up. It's something to keep an eye out for. They have what they're known for. They got some great deals on clothing. It's starting at like $1 a piece for some clothes from infants on up. But they also have other things. They have DVDs. They got jewelry, home decor, toys, scrubs, hardware, multiple things. We really appreciate them doing
I'm
a
gonna
little
check
ads.
it out.
You gotta check them out.
Ooh,
Yeah. Robert's gonna check them out.
tell him Deshaun sent you, because Tammy, this is for you. Thank you for donating. And
But yeah, thanks
all of these
for
sponsors.
doing an ad with us, and we are looking for anyone who wants to do some advertising. So we're more than happy to take anyone else on doing the little ads and help us out. Basically, what it does is helps us take care of gear. It helps us take care of giving some stuff away for the viewers and watchers and listeners and all that. Speaking of that, we've got Robert here, and I've got something, and I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
This right here is it's an album that was a re-release, right?
Yeah, this is the reissue of, it'd be the 25th anniversary of our very first record, and I love the packaging.
Great packaging.
One of the last things I did before leaving the group was get this thing kind of reissued, and I'm still real proud of what we got accomplished with it. Love the original record to begin with, but secondly, I love the sort of the added notes, liner notes, and sort of the backstory of the start of this group. So copy will be.
That's a good looking copy, and I'm gonna ask him right now and see if he can sign this for us.
Sign it.
And we are going to give this away on the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on iTunes, you're out of luck. You're going to go to YouTube. But if you are on YouTube, you're watching this. He just signed it, and first person to say, "Give me the signed Maverick CD." If you say that,
very original stuff.
if you say, "Give me the signed Maverick CD," below in the comment section of YouTube, we're gonna give that to you. You can come pick it up at the shop. Robert, one more question for you.
Yeah.
He's gonna play us off with a song. I know he's gonna.
I'm gonna
He's
try,
got a guitar ready.
I brought it.
Oh my God,
so
it's
we
just a
could do
guitar.
something.
There's a guitar.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
I didn't even see it there.
I didn't even. Woo, just
Right over
spit
your
out
head.
and bit me. Whoa.
What are you doing these days with music? What kind of stuff are you into right now?
I love writing. In fact, I'm leaving here, heading to the studio, running a little bit late.
That's us.
all right.
That's our
And
fault.
No,
No, it's
I
Robert's
committed-
fault.
I committed- no, I could not let another week go by without a session, and this was the only night they could do it.
Gotcha.
I was already committed to you, so
Good.
I was going to be here, hell or high water. But I love writing and recording. I love playing a bit. My goals are modest by comparison to my early kind of aggressive, take over the world kind of rock and roll. But I love every minute on stage. I love every minute making music, writing songs. So, I got some great guys now playing with me. And Mark Baer, Daryl Hewitt, Tim Halcomb, Woody, a guy out of Louisville that plays great keys. We've got a great band.
Cool.
And
Are you going to play anywhere coming up soon?
Yeah, well, this weekend coming, I got a couple of things. But I don't know that by the time that this edit is out, I've got the Soup, Stew, and Brew Festival.
Soup, Chili, and Brew?
Yeah, but I'm doing Mad Hop on November 2nd. So
Okay.
that I could I'm certain that'll be out in time to get you guys out to Mad Hop. And if you get a chance, check out the Mad Hop Festival, brand new festival here in Madison. Indoor, 5 venues, I don't remember, 20 bands, 18 bands playing all day into the evening, music all day, and songwriters, bands, you name it. And we'll be playing. I'm doing a couple of shows that day.
He's been putting some good stuff. He has some original stuff. You do covers sometimes too.
I do, but
You like
I
originals.
favor the originals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do covers to sort of,
I understand. And
I do it to just sort of keep myself well versed.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta go back to some of the
Yeah.
classics every once in a while. If you're listening to us, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Coming up in the next few podcasts, we're going to have a bourbon show. What's that mean? It's going to be a show that we are going to have 10, 15 different bourbons out here. We're going to do blind taste. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll show that we have no idea what we're talking about with bourbon maybe, but a friend of mine is going to be on the show, and will basically give us excuses to taste bourbon. Oh, I'm getting a note. And I just want to say something that this is the first time, and probably this will never happen again. I want to thank specifically a customer of ours, a fan of the show, Rob Boswell. Rob, thank you so much for liking our podcast and liking our store, and we really appreciate you. He was our first Patreon customer, Patreon patron, I guess you could say. He gave us money to help our show. Thank you so much for that. He's gifted us things for the store, for the shop. For the show. We appreciate you so much. And so because of that, don't think anyone else is going to get this. This is a one-off. I am giving Rob a lifelong 5% discount for his
Round of applause.
rest of his life, as long as our store's around. And that will stack. So if we got a sale going, he gets extra 5% off. Rob, thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Boswell.
everyone else who's listening, we thank we thank you very much. Next few shows, Bourbon. We're going to be talking also to Alan Anderson is going to be here.
And Mr. Darren Means,
And Darren Means, who actually made a film in Madison. It's called
Nabum, which
Nabum.
was my first film I ever got to be in. So.
And we're going to talk about movie making and the horror genre and things like that in the next few weeks. That'll be a fun show. And we got other things coming up too.
So
we got some stuff. So just keep checking in. Right?
Follow, share, subscribe, like, do all that jazz.
And we're happy to have you in any way if you're listening on iTunes or on YouTube. But you know what we're going to do now? We're going to let Robert here play us off. Play us off with a song.
Ooh, Sweet Velvet.
Yeah, don't you know? I'll do a rough take on a song called Magic. This mostly because the melody stays in my head some days if I'm singing writing lyrics, and this melody sticks with me. And also because we've been talking about we're talking about my life, and I think that the magic of music has stayed with me now for every bit of what I remember since childhood. I remember loving music, so I guess this one goes out to my mom. 2, 3. Was it a lie? Was it a dream? How did everything I ever loved just say goodbye to me? I closed my eyes, I went to sleep. Oh, and when I woke, I was alone. She even took my rock and roll, and I still believe in magic. I'm so tragic. There's a bunch of good guitar parts there. Can't play them all at once though. I'll stay with the chords.
No, I think you're doing a wonderful job so far. Sean, we can back up
It was
sing.
real, and we were free. Oh, I held you for the summer, then I set it out to sea. I closed my eyes, I went to sleep. Oh, and when I woke, I was alone. You drowning there inside of me, and I still believe in magic. I'm so tragic. Big guitar right there, really nice, and then a real George Harrison part just right back there, nice, yeah. I still believe in magic. I still believe in magic. I still believe in magic, yeah. I'm so tragic. There it is.
Woo! Thank you so much.
Robert Reynolds, thank you for
Robert Reynolds.
Where was that
Thank
little
y'all.
tape I was just
Thank you,
dreaming?
everybody. Have a good night.
Love you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Gizmo, I got a reaching at Thursday, though. Gizmo, I got a reaching at Thursday, though. Gizmo, I got a reaching at Thursday, though.